It is that time of the year again where we're doing our Premier League predictions, and I cannot lie, it's very difficult to do these predictions because a lot of the transfer business hasn't been completed. Are Newcastle going to sign Mark Gay in a winger? That would change my stance on Newcastle. Could Tottenham bring in one more signing? Is Liverpool going to bring in anyone at all? What's going to happen with many of these clubs, even Chelsea as well? So it's very difficult. So I might do another predictions like 1st of September, end of August when the transfer window is over. But we're going to go from 20th to 1st for my predictions, and then I'm going to do who I think the top scorer will be, top assist, player of the season, young player of the season, signing of the season, and just more trivia predictions after. But we're going to start with quickly here relegation. And to be honest, there is a possibility Manchester City could get relegated from the Premier League and finish bottom in 20th because their hearing is going ahead and they will make a decision whether to relegate City or not in January. A lot of financial people think there's a strong possibility City could be relegated, but money talks. So I don't want to put City in relegation for now because money talks in the world of football and they'll probably buy themselves out of the punishments and the 115 charges. But there is a possibility they could relegate City in January, which dives us into bottom Southampton. Now, I don't think Southampton have done bad recruitment at all. I just think we saw last year that, all the promoted clubs went down. Burnley, Luton, Sheffield United, all the promoted clubs went down. I think just the level in the Premier League is probably the strongest it's been when you look at West Ham, Villa, Bournemouth, Newcastle, the squads, Crystal Palace, the squads they've got. It's just difficult in the Premier League. And my relegations are Southampton 20th, Leicester 19th. Although, to be honest, part of me thinks Southampton could finish above Leicester because of the new manager at Leicester and stuff. I actually think you could put Leicester 20th, but they just finished way above Southampton in the Championship, which, as we know, doesn't always matter because, Burnley were brilliant in the Championship last year and pretty awful in the Prem. And then I've gone with Forest 18. Now, Elliot Anderson, I think, is a good signing for Forest. I think they overpaid for him, but I think we all know it's a bit of FFP thing going on there. But I'm not convinced about Nuno Esperanto Santos. So I've gone with Southampton 20th, Leicester 19th, Forest 18th. And to be honest, I think Forest have a better team than Everton. I just think Sean Dyche is a better manager. And I think Everton's transfers make a bit more sense into what they need. So I've put Everton 17th. Now, I think that Sean Dyche really overachieved with Everton's squad last year. I think that actually there's quite a few weaknesses in that squad, and I think that he's a good manager. But I think they'll just stay up because Sean Dyche is sort of good at what he does. And I think, Jacob Bryan's a good signing. I think that they've made some good deals. But I don't know how many more deals they can do because of the whole FFP saga. 16th, I've gone with Brentford. I think they're going to lose Ivan Toney. I think Cavalier is going to be a good signing. Igor Thiago, good signing. I think they've made some good additions. Probably going to lose Toney. Thomas Frank, a good manager. I think 16th will probably be fine. I think Brentford will come 16th, but they'll play like a team that comes 12th or 11th. They'll play good football, but they'll finish 16th because that's what happened last season. 15th, I've gone with Fulham. And to be honest, they almost put Fulham 16th and Brentford 15th. But I do think on paper, Fulham have better players. I think Smith Rowe will be a great addition for Fulham, but they haven't replaced Palhinha yet. And if they don't get a good Palhinha replacement in, I would definitely put Fulham further down and swap them a little bit further down. In 14th, I've gone with Ipswich. Now, this could be one that bites us. I think I've predicted Burnley to finish 15th or 14th last year. Ipswich were the best looking team in the Premier League and were phenomenal. And we obviously do know that you can play brilliant football in the Premier League brilliant football in the Championship. Burnley were brilliant in the Championship, but they went to the Premier League. They tried to play good football. It didn't work. Ipswich could be like that, but McKenna is more counter-attacking transition than possession-based, which I think could be more suited against bigger clubs in the Premier League. I think Jacob Greaves is a really, really good underrated signing. I think Amari Hutchinson, obviously phenomenal player there as well. And then obviously the other additions coming in, McKenna's a good coach. I actually think that the football McKenna plays works well, but they could get found out towards the end of the season. But I think it will work well to begin with, if I'm going to be honest. Bringing me to 14th, Wolves. Now, Wolves have just sold Pedro Neto, and I think Pedro Neto, although he's mostly injured, will be a significant loss for Wolves. Maybe they'll put the funds for Pedro Neto in another winger. I think if they spend the funds for Pedro Neto well, they can finish higher. I think Gary O'Neill is a good coach. He's a good manager. Rodrigo Gomez looks like a good signing. Lima's just very young, so probably not going to play. So the only real addition has been Rodrigo Gomez so far. And obviously, I believe they're bringing in that striker, Strand Larson. They've got on loan as well. So they're the two real proper signings. Tommy Doyle obviously coming in as well from City. So 3 proper signings. I don't know what I'm saying there about one proper signing. I meant to say Pedro Lima is probably one for the future. But it'd be interesting to see how they spend their Neto money. Good manager, good squad. Lamine is a good player. Cunha is a good player, but they have a lot of injury issues, Wolves. Like, I really rate Matheus Cunha, but he has injury issues. Ait Nouri is a good player. They've got some very good players, and they could definitely finish higher than 13th. It's just interesting to see what they will do with the Neto money, for sure. Now, I've put Brighton in 12th. New manager, new system, but I think they've made some brilliant signings. The business Brighton do is always really clever. They're also about to sign this really good guy from the Bundesliga. So I feel like Brighton are going to fall off, but then I also think they've done some of the best business. Mint is brilliant. Matt Sweef is a player I liked at United. I would have loved him at United. Another good signing coming in from the Bundesliga that's not obviously been added to this yet because it's not finalised. They've done some really good business, Brighton. It just depends how the new manager does. They dropped off a bit last season. They had a lot of injury issues. I think Brighton can finish higher than 12th, but it's just the competition is crazy. And people may be surprised with me putting Bournemouth in 11th, but I think the transfer business Bournemouth has done has been phenomenal. I think Dean Huijsen is one of the signings of the summer. Obviously very young, so his impact might not be instant, but I don't think people realise how good Bournemouth looked at the back end of last season. Obviously they're now looking at Solanke alternatives, and that could be a big miss for them, but they've actually spent like the fourth most amount of money in the last 2.5 seasons as well, Bournemouth. I think a lot of people forget that. I think they are building something quite good, and they have something quite good going on. Brings us into number 10. I've gone with Crystal Palace. They've obviously lost Elise. They might lose Gay. They could lose Eze. And if that is the case, then I would put them further down. But I think with Chadi Riyad coming in and Sarr coming in are definitely good additions. I think it depends on what happens for the rest of the window, because I think you could actually put Brighton in 10th and Palace in 12th or something like that, potentially, depending on additions. But I think, the signings coming into Palace are really good. They've probably got a bit of money for Elise, but they may sell Gay and Eze, and they could lose some key players. But there's no doubt in my mind Doogie Friedman's very good when it comes to recruitment. Obviously, managers come in and done an absolutely, Glaston's done an absolutely brilliant job. So, I put them 10th. 9th, and this may feel a bit low down, but I've gone with West Ham and 9th. And the reason I've gone with West Ham and 9th is I think Lopetegui is a great manager, and I think West Ham have done the best business this summer out of any club, and they've got a really good team going on. But I think it's just moulding it together, figuring out his best team, putting it together. I think, to be honest, West Ham could finish 6th. I think maybe I'm wrong for putting them 9th. I think West Ham could well and truly finish 6th this season and really push that top 6. I think Guido Rodriguez and Edson Alvarez in the pivot is really good options. I don't know what's going to happen with Paquetá. I don't know what the betting situation is there, but he's a good player. Kudus a phenomenal player. Guillermo is one for the future. I think Somerville's a great signing. Wan-Bissaka, Kilman, Todibo, their back line has just been absolutely transformed. They've got a proper centre forward in as well. I think West Ham could easily finish 6th. I've just put them in 9th because new manager and gelling them. That's the only reason, but I think they could easily finish 6th. I think the signings they've made has been unbelievable. Chelsea is one of those teams which could finish 12th or finish 4th. On paper, Chelsea have the third best squad in the league. On paper, Chelsea are the third best squad in the league. They have some of the best individual talents out there. Neto's a phenomenal signing. But other than Neto and Drewsbury Hall, the rest of the signing are kids that aren't going to make an instant impact. I think the Gui guy looks like a baller. I think the Viega guy is an Enzo Maresca type player that suits sort of his system. And Salima is one for the future. But it just depends on what they do. Like, if Chelsea go out there and they sign Osimhen and a big centre-back, I think Chelsea can get top 4. If they sign Osimhen and a big centre-back, I think they can get top 4. If they sign another winger, I think Chelsea have a squad that is capable of getting top 4. But I think it's going to be a bit like last season, where your manager might start slow because he needs to figure out his best team, who his best players are, and then towards the back end of the season, you do really well. But is he going to be given that time? Poch started slow, he figured out what worked. The back end of the season, he did really well at Chelsea. You run just like, I think you had the third best form since January of 2024, and Poch got sacked. I think Maresca could start slow, then improve. And it's just, will Chelsea give him time? Because I think you've got a squad capable of getting 4th. And I think if you get Osimhen and you get a top centre back, I think I could actually put you to 4th in my predictions. But I don't know how Maresca is going to do, and I think it's such a risk with a new manager. 7th, I've gone with Aston Villa, and people may think this is unfair, but I think, yes, they were in Europe last season, but I think being in the Champions League is a different kind of demand, as Newcastle learnt last year. Obviously, Newcastle had a lot of injuries, and I think it could stretch them a lot. I think Matson's a great addition. I think Amadou Onana is a fantastic addition because Douglas Luiz is a big loss. But again, I do think with Aston Villa, it's, the Champions League, you've got to play your strongest squad in those games. It's a big jump up. I think the underlying numbers would have put them in 6th or 7th last year. Not saying that they overachieved. They did phenomenal to get top 4. They play phenomenal stuff, but I just think the teams above them are a little bit better. They've also lost Diaby and Luis. That are obviously big losses. I know Diaby didn't have the best season, but it is big losses. Now, at 6th, I've gone with my team, Man United. I think we can finish 6th. I think we looked a lot better in pre-season despite results, and I think we did well in the City game. Man United season we had a sort of similar season to Newcastle in the sense of a lot of our issues came from the sheer amount of injuries we've had. Now, we signed Euro and Xerxes, but De Ligt and Masraoui are going to be announced and added to this list very soon. I think if we can stay strong at the back and not pick up injuries and sign a DM, I think we can get 6th. Potentially, if we sign a DM and it's a DM that I like, I think we could push for 4th, but I think it just depends on the midfield and the injuries for United. But I think that we'll massively improve. I know Ten Hag's the favourite to be sat first, but I actually think that we've got a good team. It just depends on massively injuries. 5th, I've gone with Newcastle, and if Newcastle get Gay and a right winger, I would generally consider putting Newcastle nearer the 4th place area of the table. They haven't really done much business yet. Lloyd Kelly's sort of coming on a free. Obviously, Lewis Hall was there last year. They've signed a keeper that's probably not going to play. Guy from Sheffield United's not going to play. They haven't really done much business, but they're looking to bring in Gay and a right winger. I believe they will. They've got a lot of funds to spend. And I think that will be a really good bit of business from Newcastle. And I think Newcastle's expected points tally would have put them 4th last year. They scored the third most amount of goals. They had the 3rd or 4th best numbers in the Premier League. Eddie Howe's a good manager. Joel Linton, Nick Pope, Botman, all having big injuries massively made an impact to their season. I think front line of Isak and Gordon are 2 of the best. Bruno Guimaraes is phenomenal. I think that Newcastle could get 4th with Gay and a right winger, but I'm going to put them 5th because of the business not being done yet. In 4th, I've gone with Tottenham. Now, again, I think Tottenham's a very hard team to predict because they've got some really good players, but a lot of their players are young and you just don't know how they're going to adapt to the Premier League. I think Archie Gray's a fantastic signing, but he may need a season to adapt and find his best role. I think the one fear around Tottenham is that Ange Postecoglou hasn't worked out his best midfield yet, but I think Dominic Solanke coming in is a really good signing, got 19 goals last season. That will allow Son to play on the left. That elevates Tottenham's front line. I think your back 5 is really good. If it can stay fit, Romero, Van der Ven, Vicario, Porro, Udogie, I think that back line's very, very good. I think your youth is talented. I think not Archie Gray, Mikey Moore could have an impact this season. Birdwall's looked phenomenal in pre-season, and Archie Gray's a baller. But again, Tottenham, it's how the risk of playing the youth, how does it go? And just known to play the youth, improve in the second season, do good stuff, and the additions have been good. And I think Tottenham have got a good project going on. But the one thing about Ange is if he starts to get found out, he doesn't change his tactics, he can be stubborn. Could that cost him? But I do think Tottenham will get 4th place. Continuing on into 3rd, I've gone with Liverpool because I think squad-wise they've got one of the best squads in the league. But then people would have said that about Man United when Moyes inherited it and Moyes went down the drain. And Arne Slot is giving Moyes vibes where he's not getting any of the signings he wants in, rejected, can't get it done, and then he'll get his Fellaini type signing in the window. Arne Slot is giving David Moyes vibes this window. Liverpool aren't showing real ambition to back the new manager. Now, I think Liverpool will probably make 1 or 2 signings last minute, but now they haven't got Subamende coming in. Apparently, they might not even sign a DM, so it's interesting to see what goes on at Newcastle because if Slot isn't backed, he could finish 5th or 6th. Now, I think they've looked really good in pre-season. I think they have a really good team. I think Slot is really good at, making the most out of that Liverpool team. And I think he's more than capable of keeping them in 3rd. But it's just the lack of signings. It's so hard to predict. They've looked one of the best teams in pre-season. But I think with no Subamende, no signings, it's hard to predict. In 2nd, I've gone for Manchester City. They haven't made any real signings yet, but I expect them to make some big signings because if you look at outs, they've made ridiculous money in the sales of Julian Alvarez and stuff as well. But again, Savinho, the guy from Troyes, is the only real signing coming in, and he's probably, again, he was really at the club, sort of been forced to go there. It looks like people are reluctant to join City because of the FFP situation as well. That could be looming over their head. And I think the fact that, the FFP situation is looming over their head, they haven't signed anyone new, they didn't look at their best last season, is why City is 2nd. And unfortunately, I've put Arsenal 1st. Now, so far, they've only actually signed Calafiore. But I think if they sign Mikel Merino and potentially even another attacker, and the fact that they keep improving every season under Arteta and they've looked really good in pre-season, the defence is solid and they're slowly improving the attack. Sadly, I think Arsenal will win the league next season. I think City will definitely have some distractions with the whole FFP thing going over their head. Which brings me into top scorer. I think you have to go with Haaland first. It's always a safe bet. But I've gone with Isak in 2nd. If Isak can stay fit, I think he can compete with Haaland. Most assists, Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes has created the most chances, key passes and big chances in the Premier League, I think, for 4 seasons in a row. So safe bet going with Bruno, but also Trent could be up there despite playing right back. Player of the season, I've gone with Odegaard. I think it'll be Arsenal's year, and I think Odegaard will be key. But Phil Foden has the best PR in the league, so he does often get given player of the season, so you've got to put him in there as well. Young player of the season, I've gone with Palmer and Garnacho. I think Cole Palmer can win it again. He's phenomenal, but I think Garnacho would have a good season. I think players like Mikey Moore, Trey Ione can have breakout seasons, but I don't know if they'd play enough to get the minutes to compete with like Palmer and Garnacho for young player of the season. You've got to play every game, but I think there's some really good young players that could break out. Big breakthrough, I've gone with Bergvall and Amad Diallo. Now, Amad Diallo is a bit older than the other players, but he just didn't play for United last season. For some reason, Ten Hag played Anthony over him, and I think Ten Hag's woken up to realise Amad is class. But from watching pre-season, Lucas Bergvall looks phenomenal. And then signing of the season, I've gone with two West Ham players in Tottenham and Somerville. I just think both have looked really good. Guys, let me know your thoughts down below and your predictions down below. This could very likely change, and I might do another video at the end of the transfer window because I think a lot of it, particularly the top 10, massively depends on transfers. Thank you for watching.